Good day, everybody. It's Andrew here. We've got some big updates. We have a potential new deal that Chuck Schumer just offered Democrats to try and get the next stimulus package done and potentially stimulus checks for seniors. So let's discuss the details and what we expect to happen next. But before we jump into it, do me a quick favor, hit like, hit subscribe, and share this channel with anyone who you think might find this helpful. This is a community for seniors, and my job here is to be a voice for you and be a voice for seniors to make sure President Biden keeps his promise to increase Social Security benefits, increase SSI and SSDI, and even approve a stimulus check for seniors in this next stimulus package. So thank you so much for being a part of our community, and if you really want to support my work, consider subscribing to my second channel. The link to that is going to be in the comments of this video, and on that channel we're going to have some updates as well, but we're also going to mix it in with things like playing bingo. I plan on having a bingo every Monday night, and other things too, like playing casino games. Just a fun channel. So if you guys would like to support our work, subscribe to that channel. And with that said, let's jump right into today's updates. What is this new deal that Chuck Schumer just offered Democrats? Could Joe Manchin get on board? And what do we expect to happen next? Remember, Bernie Sanders is trying to include a stimulus check for seniors in that package, anywhere between $1,000 and $2,000. So before we jump into that, let's do a quick update on daily trending news. One thing I wanted to point out is currently trending is the fact that studies are showing that 56% of Americans cannot afford to cover even a $1,000 emergency without using something like a credit card or borrowing money from family. And this just goes to show that when we see headlines like the stock market is soaring, the economy is doing well, and then, we should stop stimulus. That's really not the case. I mean, look at this study that shows almost 60% of Americans don't even have enough money in the bank to cover a $1,000 emergency, folks. So this really just goes to show that those who are at the bottom, it's not just a small percentage of people. We have over half of people in this country who can't afford a $1,000 expense. So this is just another reason why President Biden needs to get these stimulus checks for the people done. Now, in this poll, they asked people how they would pay for a $1,000 emergency bill, and only 44% of people said they could use savings. 20% said they would have to use a credit card and then pay that back slowly over time. And then the other 30% said they would either pay the bill and have to cut back on other expenses or borrow from family or a personal loan. So again, when we see headlines like the stock market is soaring, the economy is doing well, we need to end stimulus, it's simply not true, guys. And let me know in the comments if you agree. This number, I wouldn't be surprised if it was even higher for seniors. I wouldn't be surprised if it was over 70% of seniors who couldn't cover a $1,000 medical expense. So, with that said, guys, let's jump right into today's updates. What's going on with Chuck Schumer? What's the deal he just offered Joe Manchin and Democrats to try and get the Build Back Better Act done? Try and get other things done like voting legislation, immigration reform, other things that Democrats are trying to do. But for the purposes of this channel, we're going to focus on Social Security changes and that next stimulus package. So Chuck Schumer offered Joe Manchin and Democrats to change the filibuster rule, not completely eliminate it. Now, we've been talking about this for almost a year at this point. Some Democrats want to eliminate the filibuster. Chuck Schumer took that off the board, but he offered Joe Manchin to just do a slight change, a tweak, which really puts it back to what it originally was, which means something they call a standing filibuster, making it still applicable. Republicans could still filibuster things, but it would make it a lot more difficult, meaning they would actually have to stand on the Senate floor and sit there and talk for hours in order to block legislation. What ends up happening in a situation like this is that some legislation does still get blocked, things that are really bad or really extreme for the country, but then the majority of things that are kind of moderate or really help the American people would still get done. So this is the deal that Chuck Schumer offered Joe Manchin. And quickly, Joe Manchin responded and said, you know what? He's changing his mind and he's not on board with a standing filibuster. And this is a stark change from what he said just earlier this year. Now, when Democrats were talking about getting rid of the filibuster, Joe Manchin said he would never get rid of it, but he would be open to changing it. And one of the changes he said he would be on board with would be this exact deal that Chuck Schumer just offered, to change it to a quote unquote standing filibuster. So now Joe Manchin moved the goalpost once again, and we're not sure if this deal is going to get accepted. He said no, but again, things could continue to develop. They could make Joe Manchin an offer that helps things in his state, like coal mining, things like infrastructure, things like that to get the deal done. But it's just really frustrating to see that the more Democrats move towards Joe Manchin and what he needs and what he demands, the more Joe Manchin just continues to move the goalpost, right? But that's the deal, a standing filibuster, and that would really create a situation where Democrats could get multiple smaller packages done with a simple majority of 51 votes, meaning they could do a smaller standalone bill for the stimulus check for seniors or the stimulus voucher, whatever you want to call that. They could do a standalone bill for the Medicare expansion, a standalone bill to increase Social Security benefits. These are all things that President Biden promised on the campaign trail. So these are things that Democrats could then do in multiple smaller piecemeal deals, making it a lot more likely to get done because instead of doing one massive package where you have a million things you have to compromise on, they could go to Joe Manchin and say, Joe Manchin, hey, we want to expand Medicare. Create a compromise on that, maybe throw something in for Joe Manchin and get that done as a single bill. And do the same thing with Social Security, do the same thing with the stimulus for seniors. Things like that really just make it easier to move forward and at least get smaller wins along the way as Democrats work on trying to get their larger bill passed long term. So that's what's happening, folks. That's the current offer. We'll have to wait and see what happens. Obviously, Joe Manchin is still putting his foot down, still being difficult, but things could change any day. So don't forget to subscribe, and I will keep you posted as things develop. Now, Bernie Sanders just made headlines as he said that if Democrats Joe Manchin and Kyrsten Sinema don't get on board with changing the filibuster rule, that they should consider replacing them as the Democratic nominees to run for Senate when they're up for re-election. Now, both of them aren't up for re-election for a few years, but they're basically threatening to challenge them in a primary. Usually what happens recently is if a senator is doing well in that state, they just go ahead and run again, and they don't have a primary opponent to actually run against. Now, Bernie Sanders is saying they should change this, and if Joe Manchin and Sinema don't get on board, they should have another Democrat on board to replace them once they're up for re-election and challenge them in a primary. Now, that's an interesting idea, but to be honest with you, it's a little bit of a stretch because Arizona and West Virginia are really conservative. They're a moderate state. They're moderate states at best, and West Virginia, quite frankly, has become a Republican state. So to find another Democrat that could topple Manchin and then also still win in the general Senate election in that state, it's going to be a difficult thing to do. It's going to be a big challenge because Manchin does a really good job of threading that needle. Now, although he's frustrating, he's honestly the main thing standing in the way of Social Security increases getting done and the stimulus for seniors. But at the end of the day, it would be a tall order to replace him in West Virginia. So don't forget to subscribe, guys. I'm going to keep you updated as things develop. Democrats are going to continue to work, try and change that filibuster rule, which again would put us in a situation to do multiple smaller packages. They're going to continue to work towards Biden's agenda, which obviously is way too slow, but that's increasing Social Security benefits, creating a minimum benefit for Social Security, SSI, and SSDI of 125% of the federal poverty level. And as that stands right now, that would be about $1,600 per month, creating that as a minimum benefit, not just the average. That's currently about the average, but that would be the minimum benefit that everybody on benefits would get. So don't forget to subscribe. I will keep you posted as things develop on this next stimulus package, Social Security changes, and daily news updates as well. That's about it for this video, folks. Thank you so much for watching, and until the next one, take care and have a great day.